What's going on, people? Today I'll be breaking down part 3 of Attack on Titan's final season in around 10 minutes or less. In case you're new to the channel, you should know that I've already made videos explaining parts 1 and 2 of the final season, which you can find in the description below, and I also made a much longer video breaking down the Easter eggs in part 3. However, like I said, the video you're currently watching is a 10-minute overview for anyone who wants a speedy explanation, so without further ado, let's just get into it. Okay, so part 3 of Attack on Titan kicks off with Marley getting flattened by the rumbling as entire generations of refugees get wiped out. What was especially tragic about this is that one of those refugees was a boy called Ramsey, who was someone that Eren had gotten friendly with the year before. Back then, Eren happened to be walking by as Ramsey was getting beaten up by some Malians, and although he initially hesitated, he did step in to save his life. The problem here though is that Eren felt like he had no right saving someone who he knew he was eventually going to kill, and so at the time he broke down crying as a confused Ramsey just listened to him ramble about his reasons for destroying the world. In the present day, the Wall Titans then crush Ramsey and his whole family, while in a separate area of Marley, Eren's own grandparents also get squashed. In case you may have forgotten, this is Grisha's mum and dad, and from the looks of it, they were locked up by the Malian police and then just abandoned in this cell as the Titans began approaching. Having seen his dad's memories though, Eren didn't really have any love for his grandparents, and personally I doubt he even gave them a second thought after he left Liberia. As the rumbling continues to march, the steam coming off of the Titans gets so intense that it sets people on fire, while others wisely decide to end their own lives before it can happen to them. Simultaneously, Eren watches the chaos from inside of his founding Titan, and in his head he was celebrating the fact that he finally achieved the freedom he wanted ever since he was a child trapped behind the walls. During his childhood, the wall in Shiganshina always felt like a cage to him, and he believed that if he could reach the other side, he'd see all the amazing things that he read about in Armin's book. However, the reality was that the outside world is a super disappointing place filled with humans who want them to die, hence why he's now just wiping it all away. Using his founding Titan, Eren then summons Armin into the past dimension, but as you can see, when Armin returns to the real world, he immediately forgets about their interaction. From this, it's heavily implied that Eren wiped his memory of their conversation, because otherwise it's a no-brainer that if Armin had remembered, he would have told the rest of the Alliance about what just happened. Anyhow, on the ship, he and Annie have a slightly awkward moment where it's obvious they both like each other, but sadly this is no time for romance as the world around them is literally getting torn to pieces. Later that same night, the Alliance then finally arrives in the Malian city of Odaha, and as a reminder, the reason they came to this place was so that the engineers would have a place to get the flying boat ready in peace. One important detail is that wrapped around this flying boat was dynamite that was put there by the Jaegerists, but rather than throwing it away, Armin suggests that they take it with them to potentially use against the founding Titan. The Alliance then goes to question Yelena about where Eren might be heading, and she reveals that the most likely location is a base called Fort Salta. The reason this is the most likely location is because Fort Salta is where Marley stores a lot of their airships and explosives, and Yelena had previously warned Eren that it might be a threat. As a result, he's heading over there to destroy Marley's final defense, and once that's done, they won't have anything that could possibly stop him. Throughout the night, Onyankopon and the engineers then work on preparing their flying boat, and they do get it fully ready around sunrise. Following this, the Alliance splits into two groups, with one half of them planning to confront Eren, while Annie and the rest of them plan to just stay behind on the ship that they arrived on. Unlike the rest of the warriors, the female Titan had lost the will to keep on fighting, given that in her mind, her only motivation was to see her dad again. But now that Liberia's been trampled, it was reasonable for her to assume that he had to be dead. Unknown to her though, in part 2 of the final season, Mr. Leonhardt began a small uprising, and along with Reiner's mother, Peek's dad, Gabby's parents, and a bunch of other Eldians, they were all making their way to Fort Salta. The plan here was that if they could reach the fort quickly enough, then they can avoid the rumbling by flying over it with an airship. Before we get to that though, back in Odaha, the Alliance had their plans disrupted when Flock randomly shows up out of nowhere. The last time we saw him, he was shot down into the ocean by Gabby, and it pretty much looked like that was the end, but no, he did survive and he was dragged through the water all the way from Eldia to Odaha. As if that wasn't enough, don't forget that Flock was also the only survivor of Zeke's rampage in Season 3, so his plot armor was generally getting somewhere close to Reiner levels. In any case, now that he was in Odaha, Flock's main aim was to protect Eren from the Alliance, and so he indiscriminately shoots the place up, and in the process makes a few holes in the flying boat. Although Mikasa kills him immediately afterwards, the damage had already been done, as the engineer said it would take an hour to repair the fuel tank. That was especially bad news since the rumbling was on their doorstep by this point, and until the fuel tank is fixed, it would be impossible for them to take off. In this moment, what the Alliance needed was for someone to help slow down the rumbling, and initially Armin offers to be that person. His Colossal Titan form would have the best chance of stopping the other Titans, but the rest of the group wanted to save his powers in case they needed it against the Founding Titan. For that reason, Hanji steps up to be the sacrifice, but not before they appoint Armin as the new commander of the Scouts. Admittedly, that title doesn't have the same ring to it anymore, given that the Scouts are now just 5 people who are considered to be traitors back home, but still, it was at least a nice gesture. Hanji then tears down a huge section of Wall Titans to the point where the Titans are tripping over each other and struggling to move forward. Gradually though, they do make it to the hangar in the end, but by the time it happens, the holes in the flying boat were sealed and the tank was at least partially refueled. Therefore, thanks to Hanji becoming a martyr, everyone else was able to get away, with Annie, Kiyomi, and the warrior candidates escaping by ship, while Onyankopon flies the Alliance towards Fort Salta. On the journey there, the gang discuss exactly how they plan to deal with Eren, and Pieck suggests that they simply use the Colossal Titan to blow up the Founder. The reason for this idea is that right now they have no clue where Eren's real body is located, and so destroying the whole thing would be a guaranteed way to stop him. That being said, Pieck obviously has no loyalty to Eren whatsoever, so she's totally fine with killing him. Whereas from Armin's point of view, his preference is to just talk to his friend and convince him to end the massacre without the need for any fighting. Levi then suggests an alternative solution, which is that instead of targeting Eren, they try and find the Beast Titan, who was last seen when he got absorbed by the source of all living matter. If the Alliance could somehow locate Zeke inside this pile of bones and kill him once and for all, then Eren would no longer have a Titan of royal blood, and without that, the rumbling should come to a standstill. As the group then theorizes about Eren's motivations and mindset, the man himself abruptly summons all of them to the past dimension, where he makes his position incredibly clear. In short, he tells them that nothing they say will ever change his mind about doing this mass slaughter, and the only way they can stop him is if they end his life. Meanwhile, on the other ship, the rest of the Alliance head in the direction of Hizuru, which is of course Kiyomi's home country, and on the way there, Falco comes to a huge realization. Usually, when someone inherits one of the 9 Titans, it's normal for them to see memories from the previous user, but in this case things were slightly different. Although Falco did inherit the Jaw Titan, it was Zeke's spinal fluid that titanized him in the first place. That's why his shifter is essentially a hybrid between the Jaw and Beast, meaning he can see memories from previous Beast Titans as well. One of those memories was of someone flying way high above the clouds, and Falco reveals to everyone that it feels like he can do that too. Now, switching over to the Eldians who escaped Liberia, when they eventually made it to Fort Salta, there wasn't a single airship available that they could use. Ordinarily, this would mean that they're all gonna die, but in a surprising turn of events, the airships that had left the base were all heading towards the Founding Titan. The idea was that each of these ships would fly as close as they could to the Founder, and then accurately drop thousands of explosives on top of Eren and some of the Titans around him as well. If this plan had been done correctly, then it might have had a chance of working if they targeted his head and, evaporated his real body, but to be fair, Eren never really gave them the opportunity to do that. As the airships were approaching, he used his powers to manifest a replica of the Beast Titan that was made purely out of Titan hardening. It's crucial to note that this replica is not actually Zeke, but rather it's a copy of Zeke that is directly connected to the Founding Titan. Due to this connection, we can assume that either Eren or Ymir is in full control of its actions, and the appearance of this Titan caused all of the airships to panic. Instead of getting close like they initially planned to do, they were all told to just release the explosives they had, leading to most of the bombs being inaccurate. Seconds later, the fake Beast Titan then destroyed every last airship with a pitching assault, ending any faint hope Marley had of stopping the rumbling themselves. Thankfully for them, Onyankopon showed up just in time, with the rest of the Alliance then skydiving out of the flying boat. The 7 of them then land on top of Eren, with Reiner in particular transforming into the Armored Titan and tackling the fake Beast Titan to the ground. At the same time, over on Fort Salta, his mother and all of the other warrior parents, they couldn't believe it, because by this point they just assumed that their kids were either dead or at best alive somewhere on the island. To see Reiner and peak here was something no one was anticipating, and in part 4 we'll see how the rest of it plays out. With that said, that was my speedy recap of part 3 of Attack on Titan, the final season, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see my thoughts on the final ever episode that's coming out very soon. Thanks for watching as always, and until the next one, peace out.